Hello, everyone. Welcome to our information session. We will start in a few minutes once everyone has had the opportunity to join the link. My name is Courtney. I am an admission officer here at Occidental, and we have several additional admission officers who are working behind the scenes during today's presentation. So please do take advantage of the Q&A feature if you have questions during the session. There are a lot of us who are going to be joining today, so I do encourage you to save your questions. We may be answering a lot of them as we go along, but if there is something that we missed or you wanted to hear about, that's what the Q&A is there for. So even if we don't get to every question, we will do our best. We will also be sharing some links in the chat box as we go, and this will be a great way for you to learn more about the Oxy experience on your own or to kind of follow up on some of the areas that we talk about. There are also two Oxy students here with me today, and they will be sharing a little bit about their Oxy experience and will be helping answer your questions. And at the end, we will have a Q&A with them, so you can also save any questions for them. I'm sure you're eager to hear about their experiences at Oxy. So again, my name is Courtney. We're going to give it just another minute. There are a lot of people joining us actually from all over the world today. We have multiple continents represented in this group. So I really appreciate those of you who are in very different time zones than what we are here in Los Angeles. Thank you for taking the time to be here. And if you are someone who is watching the recording of this later, just so glad that you were still able to take advantage of this information and of this time. So again, my name is Courtney Stricklin Burgan. I am the Senior Associate Dean of Admission here at Oxy, and I'm also an Oxy graduate from the class of 2003. I returned to Oxy a few years ago, and I have really loved being part of the admission team, especially because the Oxy community, I would say, inspires me as much now as when I was a student. So to help me with those student examples and to share some more current examples than mine would be, I'm going to ask the students to quickly introduce themselves. Kara, if you'll get us started.
Sure. Hi guys, I'm Care. I'm a senior this year, and I'm a Diplomacy and World Affairs major and a Black Studies minor. On campus, I'm involved with intramural sports. I'm part of the Black Men's Group Harambe, and I'm a fellow at the Young Initiative, which is the Diplomacy World Affairs Department outreach with the local community and the city.
Thank you so much for joining us. You've got a lot going on, so we really appreciate you taking the time to be here today. And Haley.
Hi, everyone. My name is Haley. I am also a senior here at Oxy. I am a history major, East Asian Studies minor from Sacramento, California. I have been a tour guide since my freshman year, so that's what I'm normally doing for the admissions office, but I'm happy to be here today. In addition to that, I'm also a member of the Oxy softball team, as well as Alpha Lambda Phi Alpha, one of our sororities here on campus, and I am also an orientation leader.
So it is a busy time for everyone, as you might imagine. Our students are actually moving in next week, and they are returning to campus. In fact, I'm sure you have a lot of questions about COVID and what that experience has been like. So we'll certainly try to address that as we go through. I want to assure you, first and foremost, we fully understand how this might play out, what it might look like in your application in terms of transcripts and extracurricular activities and how things were changed, whether or not you're able to go back to school in person this year. So be assured that will not be held against you, and we will talk more about that when we cover our admission and financial aid process at the end. Otherwise, today, the students and I are going to be presenting on the academic and the co-curricular experiences at Oxy. And as I said before, we will leave some time and have a little Q&A with our students at the end. At Oxy, we know that our liberal arts academics, our collaborative community, and our location in Los Angeles really comes together to provide a college experience that you won't find anywhere else. So other liberal arts colleges are located in really rural or suburban settings, and other Los Angeles campuses are actually much larger universities with enrollment that's often 10 and 15 times the size of Oxy. Oxy is also recognized as being one of the most diverse private liberal arts colleges in the country, and our campus community is known for our emphasis on collaboration and community service. So if these are important pieces in your college search, maybe you're thinking about size or location and community, then I really believe you won't find them combined the same way at any other school. And not only does this make Oxy unique, but it also creates a campus community that really prepares our alumni to be successful after Oxy, which is one of the other things we will talk about today. Since you are all joining us from so many different places, I do want to make sure you first get a sense of where Oxy actually is. And Oxy is in the northeast corner of LA, which is just about 7 miles outside of downtown. So famous landmarks like Hollywood or the beach, these are really accessible to our students. And our campus itself is in the highlighted orange section of this picture. So we have a small enrollment with just over 2,000 students, but the campus itself is 120 acres of academic and residential spaces. There are multiple transportation options available to Oxy students so you can get into the city. We have a bike share for students to check bicycles out for free with helmets, with locks, and they can also use our ride share system called the Bangle Bus, where you can get a free Oxy ride with an Oxy driver. Oxy students are also given access to free Metro cards through our student government. And apparently we've been keeping it a secret, but LA has great public transportation, so you really don't have to sit in traffic to get around the city. There is lots to explore in our neighborhood as well. And Kiara, maybe you can share, what are some of the things that you like to do off campus? Just either ride around, maybe in Eagle Rock or Highland Park, or something in the city that you like to do on the weekends?
Sure. I mean, of course, the big one is going down to the beach. The beach is not that far away, so a lot of students love to go there on the weekends. For me personally, I'm a big fan of all types of music, so the concert scene in LA is huge. I've been to Camp Flog Gnaw, which is a huge music festival that happens every year in Dodger Stadium, and I was able to actually take a Bangle Bus there to save myself a lot of time on parking as well.
Well, and money. So how fabulously convenient is that? We will talk more about LA because it really plays into our classroom experience as well. But since you're not able to see the campus today, I encourage you to take advantage of our interactive map. So if you go to map.oxy.edu, you will be able to see a list of locations and really explore the campus. Or if you select that menu for tours, which we've circled here in our image, you can actually see a campus tour in the order as if you had been here on campus itself. So just like if Kara and Haley were walking you around to show you things, and there's even a recording of a student tour guide, so you can even hear a student talk about the campus spaces. You'll also find a video tour on our admission website, which is another great way to kind of virtually experience what the campus looks like. So I hope you will take advantage of one of those options. As you learn about Oxy, it's important to note that first and foremost, Oxy offers a liberal arts education. So every student participates in the core program, which provides opportunities to study the arts, the sciences, the social sciences, and the humanities, regardless of your major. Core is not a list of classes you have to take to graduate. It's really a list of subjects that you'll be exposed to before leaving Oxy, but based on what you're interested in. So for example, everyone at Oxy is required to study something that happened before the 1800s. There are centuries of time to choose from, right? So there's many options in the history department, but as you might also guess, you could take this core requirement through music or literature or religious studies. This also allows you to fulfill your core requirements based on your own interests, which I think highlights our interdisciplinary curriculum at Oxy. You're going to more easily see what a class outside of your major has in common with your major when you're interested in both of those subjects. It's a lot easier to connect those dots. The core program starts with a first-year seminar, and these courses focus on the research and writing, the analytical thinking skills that we know our students are going to be using for their 4 years at Oxy. But just like with the other core classes, there are more than a dozen first-year seminars to choose from, and you get to pick the topic you are interested in. So Haley, maybe you could give everyone an example of that. What was one of the first-year seminars that you took?
So the very first one I took was transnational feminist film, but the second one that I really enjoyed was Native Americans in the urban diaspora. So looking at how the Native American community interacts with our modern LA landscape. And so the class actually had us go to a powwow and interact with Native leaders in the area. So it was really not only using the LA landscape as a resource for research, but making us aware of where we are in location.
Amazing. And what not only are these topics super interesting, as both of those examples that Haley shared, but these classes are also limited to just 16 people. So you're sitting in a room with 15 other students that picked that same first year seminar as you. So you therefore automatically have something in common with everybody in the room, which is lovely. But I think also really emphasizes just kind of the living and learning community at Oxy. This is a school where you're getting to know each other. You're participating. You're in small classes. You're raising your hand in class. You're really, really taking advantage of this discussion-based program. As you can see here, our average class size is just 19 for all 4 years. So it's not only that first year seminar that you're going to have, that's going to be a small class. So the expectations are really high. Our faculty are going to know not just your name, but they're going to know what you're excited about. They're going to help connect you with opportunities. They're going to notice if something is challenging. It's as likely for a faculty member to offer their support as it is for a student to reach out, go to office hours, ask for help. And we really, really love our relationships with our professors. Oxy has a 10-to-1 student-faculty ratio, so you're spending a lot of time with each other. And everyone I know who went to Oxy has stories of when professors called or texted and were like, we're all waiting for you, like we're all in this class, we can tell that you're missing. And so just the accountability on both sides of just knowing that not only is your participation really valued, but also that your class is depending on you to be there and to be part of the conversation. There are 34 majors at Oxy and 10 additional minors, and most majors can also be a minor. As you can see, Oxy offers as many programs in the sciences and the social sciences as we do in the humanities and the arts. The most popular majors are economics, biology, diplomacy and world affairs, psychology, and sociology. Oxy is also well known for some of the smaller departments like critical theory and social justice, which looks at the history of bias and prejudice in society, or our program called Comparative Studies in Literature and Culture, which studies a foreign language in the literature that was written in that language. We also have a food studies department. We're one of the only liberal arts colleges in the country with food studies. There are pre-professional programs in law and medicine, as well as any individualized advising for students planning to go to graduate school outside of those areas, maybe in business, education, really any other field. Most students at Oxy do have a minor or more than one minor, and 1 in 10 students has a double major. So all students start at Oxy as undeclared, even if they do think they know what they are going to major in, but they have until the second year to declare their major. A typical Oxy student spends about 1/3 of their classes in their major and 1/3 of their classes in our core program, and then they get to fill that final 1/3 of their classes with whatever other subjects they are interested in. So it's not even unusual for a student to get a minor on accident, to find that they've enjoyed courses in another major so much that they've already met those minor requirements and that it can be part of their program. Oxy is an incredibly research-oriented institution. We have research opportunities available during all 4 years of the student experience. We have, for example, a marine biology research group where we offer scuba certification to our students, and they complete their fieldwork in the oceans of Southern and Baja California, a huge advantage of being in LA. We also have an undergraduate research center on campus that funds between 100 and 150 students to live on campus over the summer and complete a full-time research project of their own design. So the students choose the research topic, develop their own methodology, and work with a faculty mentor. They then present this research to the entire community at the end of the summer. In fact, Oxy sends more students to the Southern California Research Conference than any other college in the state, which we are incredibly proud of, seeing as we are one of the smallest schools. Each of our students also completes a senior comprehensive project, which we call COMPS. And this is usually research driven and may result in a long form paper, a presentation, a performance, or even a comprehensive exam or seminar. So if a student has a double major, they do complete comps in both majors. Usually they would maybe work with their faculty to do one of the comps in the fall and one of the comps in the spring, for example. Now, Kara, I know you've had some experience with research on campus. Can you share with everyone a little bit about that?
Of course. My sophomore year, there was a new professor on campus, and he had sent out a little email saying, as we have no graduate students to be research assistants, he sent out an email to the class saying if anyone felt inspired, send in their resume. So I sent in mine, and we worked on research throughout the fall of that semester into the spring, and gained a lot of valuable experience. And we worked on how wealth influences law and econ law specifically. So that was a really valuable experience for me.
Fabulous. Thank you. I'm so glad you got to participate in that. Now, in addition to research, Oxy has a real emphasis on kind of the value of hands-on learning within the city of Los Angeles, especially because we are one of the few liberal arts schools that's in a major city and the only one really within the city limits of LA. So Oxy students have a lot of opportunities to integrate the city into their education. This image shows an urban and environmental policy class that was on a bike tour of Highland Park. Other examples include a class in the economics department that visits the Port of Los Angeles to study American trade systems. Or there are geology courses that do field studies in the Mojave Desert and the San Gabriel Mountains. Not only does Oxy get students out into Los Angeles, but we also bring the city to campus. Faculty regularly invite experts here to join them in class. A great example is from the theater department. There's a class where students attend a show every Friday evening with their professor, and then someone from that show, so maybe one of the actors or directors or stage manager, will come to their class the following Monday to speak with students. So just what an incredible opportunity to really kind of put these ideas into practice, to see firsthand what they are like. Now, Haley, you've had some classes that have used LA in unique ways. Do you want to share some examples with everyone?
Sure, I've had lots of classes that have used LA in a variety of ways. I took an education class during my sophomore year where our professor actually required us to use the metro to get to Chinatown, where we then met and went to a dual language school in the area and got to meet with the teachers there and learn about how students are developing with those dual language programs. I've also had a class, I took zoology, so part of that core requirement, the class I never would have taken otherwise, but we got extra credit if we went to the Natural History Museum or the aquarium or the zoo. So some friends and I went out and did that on one evening, just got to go out and explore LA and then had a great dinner afterwards. But in every one of my classes, I've always had a required external component and or a credit one. So lots of opportunities.
Absolutely. I know there are even special budget lines for faculty to do this, just to really make sure it's available to everyone. There is a huge emphasis on study abroad at Oxy as well, because we know we can learn not only from the city of Los Angeles, but really from well beyond even our own borders as a country. And traditionally, over 75% of Oxy students study in another country, either through a semester-long program or by conducting research abroad, or even taking a field trip to another country with their class. Students can study abroad from any major, even if they have a double major, and our student athletes study abroad in as high of numbers as other students. There are also programs both during the academic year or during the summer or the winter or the spring break, so it really is accessible. And all financial aid applies to study abroad. So students do not have to pay additional costs for these international experiences through Oxy's programs. Oxy is also the only undergraduate college that offers residential internships at the United Nations. So this is a UN program that allows 14 to 16 seniors the opportunity to live and work full-time at a UN mission in New York, while also completing 2 Oxy courses with the faculty director who travels with them to New York. Additionally, Oxy offers a campaign semester, which is the only program of its kind in the US. This is offered during every major election cycle, including this past fall, where students are given the opportunity to receive a full semester of credit for completing a full-time internship on any campaign being conducted in a swing state. And the students complete independent study work while on their internships, and then they return to campus for a seminar following election day. It is not uncommon for students to participate in more than one of Oxy's study abroad programs. For example, to spend a semester in another country as a junior and then participate in the UN program as a senior, or to visit a country on a class trip and then return to that country for a semester abroad, and so many other ways. Oxy is an incredibly service-oriented community as well, and you will find this both through the academic and the co-curricular experiences. We have an office called the Center for Community-Based Learning, for example, and they incorporate service projects into classroom assignments. A recent example is when the Spanish department partnered with a local hospital to have all of their outpatient guides translated into Spanish. This provided an amazing educational opportunity for our students, of course, who were completing a professional level translation work, learning a medical language, which is rarely taught in a foreign language classroom. And of course, this is a huge benefit for the hospital as well, because they are now able to provide better care to a large group of their patients. The Student Leadership, Involvement, and Community Engagement Office, which we call SLICE, they connect students with community organizations for club projects such as tutoring or other direct service, and they organize annual events like Oxy's Martin Luther King Jr. Day of Service, which invites the entire campus to come together for a day of volunteering at the start of the spring semester, and hundreds of students and staff and faculty participate in that each year. This picture shows one of Oxy's clubs called Boundless Brilliance, which has now become a registered nonprofit aimed at empowering elementary students in math and science in order to close the gender gap in STEM fields. Oxy also runs a community literacy center for students to lead neighborhood elementary students through creative exploration in the language arts. We have a neighborhood partnership program that empowers local students to really picture themselves not only obtaining their high school diploma, but transitioning to college. And our Urban and Environmental Policy Institute runs over a dozen local programs to support research and coalition building in education and advocacy and policy. Now, Haley, I know one of the organizations you're part of has a big service component. Do you want to tell everybody about that?
Yes, so as a member of Alpha, one of our sororities here on campus, all of our grade boards are philanthropically associated. So my organization specifically, we do a lot of work with Planned Parenthood. So we've been working with them for over 10 years now. And we always do fundraisers throughout the year to support them, as well as making sure that students on campus are aware of the resources they provide, in addition to helping them with their 5K every year. So really making sure we're doing an active participation to give back.
Absolutely. And you'll see this as we talk today. The Oxy community is very engaged. Our students care a lot about the community around us, really support each other. And I think that you find a passion for social justice, but also for activism. And that's really present both in and out of the classroom. I think this is kind of a natural side effect of being such a diverse campus. Like when our students come from all over the world, I think there is a real instinct to want to make the world a better place. And I love that about Oxy. You can see here that our students represent a wide range of backgrounds. Typically between 35 to 40% of our first year class is originally from California, but the majority of everyone else is from somewhere else. And of our Californians, we are equally split between Northern and Southern California. When you look at the entire 4-year class at Oxy, so not just the first years, Oxy has 48 states and 65 countries represented. Racially, a little over half of our student population is white. Asian and Pacific Islander ethnicities are the majority of our domestic students of color. The campus is usually between 12 to 15% Latino and Latina students and 6 to 8% Black students. Not only will you find people from different ethnicities at Oxy, but also different backgrounds due to socioeconomics, religion, orientation, identity, of course, geography, and more than 15% of our students are international or dual citizens. As you can see, there are 31 languages spoken by our first year students alone. This is really, I think, a really good time to then talk about how we support students, because with people coming from so many different backgrounds, it's critical that we make sure everyone has the support they need to be successful in and out of the classroom. Every student, for example, is assigned an academic advisor based on their academic interests. So this is a professor in one of their departments who works with them. Additionally, all faculty maintain regular office hours for students in their courses, and peer tutoring is also available with upper division students. It can be especially helpful to work with a student who has taken that course before, in a previous term, for example. The Dean of Students Office provides individual responses and support for any student concerns, and the Disability Services team will ensure that all learning differences and physical needs are accommodated on campus. Students have access to a range of non-academic support as well, which focuses on the holistic experience on campus. So for example, the Intercultural Community Center offers programming around advocacy and social justice, while also creating a safe space for students from our diverse backgrounds. Immen's Wellness Center has a highly trained medical staff, which offers medical services, but also mental health counseling that is available to all students. And Project SAFE leads prevention and advocacy programs with the goal of eliminating sexual violence and fostering healthy relationships on campus. This isn't to say that Oxy is perfect, but we know every student has the opportunity for support, and I really, really appreciate how our students advocate and continue to push the school to be more equitable and supportive in our policies. Kara, maybe you could share an example of one of the support services, like maybe something on this list that's been helpful to you.
Sure. The Dean of Students Office is one of my favorite forms of academic support. If you're feeling overwhelmed with classes, if you're dealing with something outside, one of my favorite things is that they send you the notes for all your classes. And I barely take notes, so that was a huge help for me. From the Dean of Students Office, they email all your teachers, and then your teachers will usually check in on you. How are you doing? Is there anything I can help with? And they'll put you on what they call academic flexibility, which means your deadlines will be a little bit pushed back, or you can talk individually with your teachers to figure out what you need and how to get back on track, which is really nice.
Yeah, and just being at a school where we can work with people individually, like figure out how they're going to be successful, is such a huge advantage. I think maybe one of the things people don't realize is really, really kind of in your favor if you're at a small community like Oxy. The residential experience is also one of the most important support systems on campus. Not only is it kind of where we live, but I think it's a really important way that we connect with each other and build relationships. For many Oxy students, this is their first time living away from home, maybe their first time living with a roommate. So there are staff of resident advisors in each hall that are dedicated to kind of helping with that transition. There are also weekly meetings for the entire community to gather together, as well as fun programs throughout the semester. And our resident advisors provide leadership and mediation. Maybe there's a roommate conflict, or maybe they want to help connect a student with support outside of the residence hall. And since these RAs are upper division students, they're also really great mentors, and they have a lot of insight about navigating life on campus. Oxy has several themed living communities, such as the Multicultural Hall for students who wish to engage in discourse around diversity, social justice, and inclusion. There's also an all women's house, a food justice house, and there's different identity-based living. So including a house for queer students of color, a hall for the LGBTQIA community, and residential communities for Black students, Asian Pacific Islander and Desi American students, and Latino students. Oxy traditionally requires students to use campus housing for the first 3 years and guarantees housing for all 4 years. This picture does show an actual Oxy double room, and the majority of students, truly over 80%, do stay in a residence hall for all 4 years. And now, Kara, can you tell us a little bit about living on campus? I know it's one of the things we're all really looking forward to for the coming year, but you did get to have that opportunity before everything changed. And how was that for you?
Yeah, my freshman year, I lived in Bell Young, which I personally think is one of the best dorms on campus. And from my roommate, which I went randomly, my roommate ended up being my best friend for the past 3 years and is still one of my best friends today. That freshman year in Bell Young, all the experiences you do together with everyone not really knowing what's going on kind of bonded us. Most of my close friends ended up being the people who lived a couple doors down from me, which was really nice. And Bell Young is always very lively.
You can probably guess from Haley's face, we have a lot of loyalty to our residence halls. So there's strong feeling. And I think because it's something that really everyone participates in some ways, but I love that it's such a strong way to build community. Living at Oxy is also not only convenient, but we love the food. That's certainly something we can talk about later in the Q&A. So there's some real practical advantages to being on campus, but it also is great because it's then so much more easy to access all of LA. And not only is this a great city for internships and community service, but it's fun. There's lots of things to do. So Residence Life office always has free tickets to like Broadway shows and Laker games and Dodger games. There's also a lot happening on campus all the time. So maybe you want to join one of the choirs or watch your friends, perform in an ensemble or the orchestra, or maybe you want to host a show on the radio station or TV station. There's also open mic nights, and there's big whole like campus events like watching movies outside on the lawn or turning the dining hall into a roller skating rink. So things that we're all really excited about getting to come back as we live on campus again. 25% of Oxy students are varsity athletes. Oxy is a Division III school with 20 varsity sports, and we participate in the Southern California Intercollegiate Athletic Conference. So there are 12 colleges all located within 90 minutes of each other. And this is a huge advantage for our students. It really allows us to limit all the time that you need to take to travel to matches and games. It also allows our students the opportunity to support each other and see each other play. For our athletes, it means they get to be both excellent students and excellent athletes. They don't really have to choose between that. If any of you are interested in learning about an Oxy team, you are highly encouraged to reach out to the coaches prior to applying. And you can find more information about all of our different teams at oxyathletics.com. Oxy also has a dynamic club and intramural sports program, as you can see here. And so when you include these teams along with the varsity teams, as much as 45% of our students are involved in athletics. We also have wellness programs for credit like spin and Zumba and yoga. So whether or not you participate on a team, you have access to all the athletic facilities at Oxy, which includes a beautiful track, brand new gorgeous swimming pool that we're all in love with. There are tennis and basketball courts and soccer and baseball and softball fields and a fitness center. So a lot of access. Now, Haley mentioned at the beginning that she is on the varsity softball team. So do you want to talk a little bit about the kind of student athlete experience at Oxy?
I'd love to. So I came into Oxy, I was recruited. So reaching out to the coaches is the best way to do that. In addition to that, I personally really love being a D3 athlete because I am able to not only be an athlete, but explore all different types of my personality. Something my coach specifically does is we put all of our class schedules into a Google Sheet, and she's the one who creates our practice schedule around that. So I never have to compromise a class that I need to take to go to practice. She totally understands, we're here to be students before an athlete. So I really enjoy that part. But I also love the community that the athletics group is. And we do lots of social events together. We'll do community service events together. We all usually will go participate in Martin Luther King Day. So it's just a really inclusive community and something I really enjoy, especially when we have blackout games where all of our students come dressed in black so they can come cheer us on, especially since we all know each other on separate teams, so we can actually cheer them on by name. Instead of just some random number, it's your friend that just made that great goal or made a great dive. So it's just a wonderful community that I really enjoy being a part of.
And I'm so glad you mentioned that, Haley, because that's something I really love about school spirit at Oxy. Like, it's not anonymous. I mean, we're not going to get to watch Haley play softball on TV. That's unfortunately not going to happen at our little Division III college. But instead, like, you actually know people who are doing things. So getting to see your neighbor play in a volleyball game, getting to see your roommate give a research presentation, getting to see your friend perform in a theater show. Like, these are things that are part of Oxy life because we know each other and we build these great relations on campus. Similarly, then not hard to imagine that our students are super engaged in all of these different areas. And because our student body is so diverse, there's just so many kinds of things to do outside of class. Oxy has over 100 clubs and organizations. There are clubs dedicated to outdoor activities such as hiking or skiing. There are community service clubs like tutoring or the public health exchange. There are social events. There's a folk dance club. There's even a popsicle club, which are students who sit around and eat popsicles while they talk about philosophical matters, which is lovely. There are also academic and professional organizations like the Women in Economics Club or the Pre-Law Society. The Foodies Club could take you to try new restaurants in LA, or the Surf Club could teach you how to surf. So the range of clubs, I think, makes it possible for you to do the things you loved doing already, things you might be involved in now before coming to Oxy, but then also to try new things once you are here. Now, 15 to 20% of Oxy students are involved in Greek life, and we have both national and local fraternities and sororities. For example, we have a co-ed fraternity and several of our sororities that are actually only part of an Oxy tradition, not something you would find somewhere else. So Greek life really does feel different here than it does at other schools. Haley also mentioned that she is part of one of our sororities. Do you want to just talk a little bit more about that experience?
I'd love to. I personally, coming to college, did not think I was going to be a member of a sorority, but a friend of mine convinced me to just go through the recruitment process, and I'm so glad that they did, because I found one of the closest friends that I ever will have in my sorority. And so what I have found is that I have just another group of people that I know I can go to at all times and is constantly working to make Oxy a better place, as well as, host fun events throughout the year. Including socials and formals, as well as different opportunities to go do community service. And so I personally really enjoy, especially working with the other Greek orgs to host different events as well.
Absolutely. And as Haley is such a good example, I say both Haley and Care, with all of the things you do, no one is really put in a box at Oxy. No one is one thing. Like, you can be a member of the sorority and on the softball team and also be on the yearbook staff or work for admission, right? Or all of these other pieces that might come together. Now, some of Oxy's most loved traditions are a result of our very engaged community. My favorite is that the Office of Religious and Spiritual Life hosts a Thanksgiving meal each November, so before the holidays, and this is open to all students and staff and faculty. They certainly serve like all of the traditional dishes that you would expect to eat, but more importantly, during the meal, representatives from each of the student religious organizations will give a quick presentation about the tradition of gratitude within their spiritual discipline. And I love this event. It's always kind of, for me, the moment where I feel like the holidays have actually started. And I love getting to share that space with everyone. Another big Oxy tradition is called dance production. This is a huge event that happens every year. It's a student choreographed dance recital, and it has every kind of dance form. So hip hop, contemporary, but also swing and Bollywood and Irish step dancing and ballroom and ballet and whatever else our students are excited about. And in true Oxy style, what makes dance production unique is that any student can participate. There are no auditions. So even if you've never danced ever before, or if you've been dancing every day of your life, you can join and be part of the show. And there are usually between 200 and 300 participants. So it's always an incredible opportunity to kind of come support your fellow Oxy students. After graduation, we have as many students working in the for-profit and the private sector as we do the nonprofit. And we have graduates working in every possible field. So law, medicine, politics, education, entertainment, business, finance, and more and more. Oxy also sends a huge number of alumni to graduate school. When we surveyed alumni 5 and 10 years after Oxy, we found that 70% had received a graduate degree. This is 20% higher than the US national average. Oxy's small classes, our senior comps projects, and being such a research-oriented school, I think really creates incredible preparation for graduate school. And this is, I think, one of the reasons that our students are really considering these options after graduation. Additionally, 90% of Oxy students do an internship before they graduate from Oxy, and on average, more than one internship. So a major benefit of attending college in LA is the range of employers and industries available, and Oxy has incredible internship and employment partnerships with organizations like the Grammy Museum, the LA Zoo, NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory, the LA Mayor's Office, and more. So hopefully, after absorbing everything that we've been describing, so the liberal arts education, being such a community-oriented campus, being here in Los Angeles, this is where you start to see kind of what the recipe is at Oxy, right? Like what we offer to our students. And everyone leaves here with interdisciplinary skills in critical thinking, in writing and research, adaptability, communication. So our students have lived and learned with people from very diverse backgrounds. They've put their education into practice with research and service, and they've been building really incredible relationships with their fellow students and with our faculty and staff. Before we move into our final Q&A with Haley and Kier, I do want to quickly discuss Oxy's admission process, because hopefully this is resonating with you, and maybe as you listen to all this information, you're starting to picture yourself at Oxy. So you should know that Oxy uses the Common Application, and we offer a holistic application review. And so what I mean by that is we truly read every word of the application in order to determine if a student is both academically prepared for Oxy and if they would be a positive member of our community. For academics, we look at your high school transcript, and we do look very closely at your letters of recommendation from teachers. And hopefully between those two areas, we're going to find students who have not only succeeded at high school, but you've taken advantage of what those opportunities were. Maybe your school offers AP courses or international baccalaureate or honors or advanced topics or whatever that is. But also your teacher recommendations are the ones that really tell us what you would be like in a classroom. You know, do you raise your hand in class? Do you ask questions? Do you participate? Do you work well in group projects? These are the kinds of experiences you would have at Oxy. For students who are applying this year, we are still test optional. We do know and understand that the pandemic has severely impacted the access and reliability of the SAT and ACT tests. And so they are not required in the admission criteria. It truly will not be held against you if you do not submit those scores. A student, if you did take those tests and you want to share them with us, feel free. But again, it will not be held against you if you don't have them. And if you are joining us today and you're not planning to apply to Oxy this year, but you'll be applying in the future, then just stay tuned with us. We'll be announcing each summer about those test optional policies, but we do expect that to continue. For the extracurricular portion of the application, we want to know about everything you do outside of class. This could be clubs on campus, this could be sports, dance, music, art, volunteer experiences, internships, part-time jobs, religious organizations, et cetera, et cetera. So we want to know that you are the type of student who will find ways to get involved at Oxy and who will take advantage of all the activities happening on campus. We also fully understand your activities may have been canceled, right? They may have been put on hold. You may not have been able to do all the things you were able to do before the pandemic. That will not be held against you, but we do look forward to learning how you were able to stay engaged in your community, even if it was virtually during the last year, or maybe how you're looking forward to getting back involved in person as things start to slowly and safely and carefully reopen. You should also know that the application essay and the short answer sections are incredibly helpful as we get to know you individually in the application process. We really want to see your personality come through. So we hope you will write thoughtfully. We certainly encourage you to avoid any typos, but most importantly, as we read your answers with us, we're going to be trying to imagine that we are actually talking to you in person. For anyone who is applying as a transfer student to Oxy, we're going to look just as closely at the academic and extracurricular and essay portions of your application. In this case, we're also going to ask you to share with us your college enrollment history and how your path has led you to Oxy. Because we are so eager to get to know all of you individually in this process, interviews are another way that we can learn more about our applicants, and they are highly encouraged. You would interview at Oxy prior to the application deadline. So if you're planning to apply this year as a first year or a transfer student, you can sign up for an interview on our website. And we would put you in touch with either a senior fellow to come interview on campus with one of our senior students, or with an alumni volunteer where you could have an interview either in person or virtually wherever you are in the world. As you can see, Oxy offers 3 application deadlines for first-year students. There are 2 rounds of early decision admission. November 15th, which receives admission deadlines in December, and January 10th, which receives their admission decisions later in February. Early decision is a binding deadline at Oxy. You would sign an agreement stating that you commit to come to Oxy if you are offered admission. We also have our regular decision deadline, which is also January 10th, and these applicants receive their admission decision in late March, and then they would make their choice of college by the May 1st college decision deadline. There are 2 rounds of transfer admission. If you're applying as a transfer student, you can apply by November 1st if you wish to enroll in spring for this coming academic year, or March 1st is the priority deadline for any student who wishes to transfer to Oxy starting next fall. Equally important to the application and admission process is the financial aid process at Oxy. We offer 2 kinds of financial aid: need-based scholarships and merit scholarships. Need-based scholarships are provided through a combination of grants, scholarship, loans, and work study, and Oxy will meet 100% of demonstrated need. So we make sure that anyone admitted to college can actually afford to attend. And over 75% of Oxy students have been receiving some form of financial aid. Merit aid is offered to those students who most impress us with their achievements in high school academics and leadership. Merit awards range between $10,000 and $30,000 per year. They're renewed for all 4 years of study. There's no additional application for our merit scholarships, but merit scholarships are incredibly competitive. Only around 20 to 25% of our applications are offered merit scholarships each year. If you are planning to apply for need-based financial aid, you can actually predict what Oxy expects your family to be able to afford using the net price calculator on our website. There is no way to predict merit aid though, so we are looking at that entire application to determine if you are eligible for one of those competitive scholarships. Thank you all so much for your attention, for your patience. I know that there have been some really great resources shared in the chat, but as promised, I want to kind of switch gears here and turn it over to the students so that we can have some time for Q&A, maybe answer some of the questions that you are waiting to hear about from the student perspective. So to start, there are some questions specifically about diplomacy and world affairs, which is either because you're here, Care, or convenient because you're here. So do you want to share maybe a favorite class in the DWA department? And also, how did you choose that major?
Sure. For me, diplomacy and world affairs was something that I was interested in coming into Oxy, and then just taking the classes in my first 2 years really solidified that for me. My favorite class, I believe sophomore year, I took a class called Transnational Movements. And so that was really a study with one of my favorite professors, Professor Ayub, of how movements essentially begin, what causes them, and what makes them successful or not successful. So although we were mostly looking to the past, it was definitely extremely rooted in what's happening now domestically in America or happening transnationally across the world. So that's been one of my favorite classes in my 4 years, years here.
Yeah, what an awesome example. Haley, can you share with everyone how you chose your major? Because I don't think you were maybe thinking you were going to be a history major when you started at Oxy.
Yeah, I came to Oxy thinking I was going to be a politics major. I was taking Politics 101 and History 101 at the very same time. We have a fantastic politics department, but I was taking a class and I realized I can't do this for the rest of my life. But I was taking history at the same time and realized that I had always had a passion for it, and realized it was the perfect balance between the past and the present and the future, everything I was looking for. And I really enjoyed the professors I had. And so that's how I kind of ended up with the history major.
Now, in either of your departments, or maybe just in life on campus, what do you think the student culture is like? Is there like a competitive student culture, or is it more supportive? How would you describe that? Now, Haley, why don't you go first?
I personally would describe it as very collaborative. Not only do our professors, and my professors specifically, highly encourage us to work together, use research that other students have used before, hey, I found this research, I think it'd be really beneficial for you, and encouraging us to pass along those different types of articles. And especially doing lots of small group discussion, big group discussion. We're constantly talking to each other and changing different ideas.
Absolutely. I agree with that. Care, what would you add?
Something interesting. I was actually just talking about this with my friends is that a lot of us don't even know each other's GPAs. Like I don't, I'm living with two other people. I don't know their grades, barely even know their majors half the time. So all I really know is like what kind of classes they're taking because they love to talk about them all the time. And it's kind of like, I don't really ask about their grades or anything like that.
Absolutely. Now, given the size of our population, do you feel like you do know each other? Like, do you know all the students that are in your class, or do you ever feel like you're meeting new people? Like, what is that like at Oxy and Care? Why don't you start us off?
Sure. I find the size of Oxy to be kind of a perfect balance between like knowing a lot of people and being able to constantly meet new people. I think every single time I think I've met everyone in my class, someone says, "Do you know this person?" And I say, "I've never heard that name in my life." So I think it's a perfect balance in between those two little parts.
Yep, I agree. How do you feel about that, Haley?
I completely agree. It's like I didn't know Care until this summer, but we're in the same grade. So we've probably seen each other, but never knew each other's names. And so I think that just pretty much exemplifies the fact that you're never going to know everybody. And we have 1,000 new students coming in. So it's going to be a ton of new faces, especially.
Now, maybe you can share a typical day in the life. So maybe talk us through like what's a weekday look like for you and what does a weekend look like for you? Haley, do you want to start?
Sure. So my semester changes every single time. So I would say in my normal spring semester when I'm busy with softball, it may be I'm getting up on a Monday at 6 a.m. to go to lift, and then I'll have a break until maybe 8 or 8:30 for a class, and then I'll have another break where maybe I'm going to go to a tour, and then I come back, go to another class, maybe have another class that day, and then go to practice, have dinner with my teammates, and have some time for homework. That's a pretty typical day during the spring. During the weekend, it's a lot of, if it's in the spring, I'm usually having games on either Friday or Saturday. And we usually have dinner with my teammates afterwards, or we'll go out for the evening. And then on Sundays, we're all doing homework and trying to get on top of our work.
And Care, what about for you?
Sure. For me, my weekdays are like pretty chill. I don't try to schedule any classes in the mornings for me. So everything from 11 on is basically when I take my classes. And so I'd go to school throughout the day from 11 to about 5, grab some dinner, and then probably hit the gym or go play some pickup basketball, which is always popping off at the Oxy courts. On the weekends, I'll usually try to get to a concert whenever I can, regardless of the time or how much work I have to do, which isn't necessarily the best way to do it, but I do it regardless. And I'll hit the beach. And since I'm only about an hour away from home, sometimes I'll try to stop by home, see my family, and come back on the weekends.
Oh, I'm sure they appreciate that. Now, is there a misconception about Oxy that you would like to dispel? So maybe something that you thought it would be like, but then it wasn't, or maybe something you've heard, maybe something someone has described. You're like, that's not actually what it's like here. Can either of you think of an example?
I personally, so I have, my mom works in higher education. So I had this perception of college through her eyes, and that was a little nervous because she works in student conduct. So it was a little intimidating in that department. But coming in, I was suddenly just very put at ease. Like I was a very anxious person coming into college, but having that orientation time where it was just first years and an O team leader where it's just this one solid group where you just get to know people and get to know the school, really sort of flip that.
And what about you, Care?
Yeah, I think something about liberal arts colleges that kind of gets a bad rap is that like you can't have like a very differing opinion or something like that. But I think at Oxy, you can have whatever opinion you want and you're free to speak on it. But of course, people are always free to respond, and they definitely do. So there is a lively bit of engagement at Occidental that's a little bit different than the more homogenous idea that people might get.
Yes, that's a great way to describe it. This is a school that is very engaged in discourse. There's a lot of conversations all the time. Now, looking through, we've got some really great questions. So I do want to acknowledge we probably won't have time to answer all of these, but we'll get to as many as we can. And I know our admission officers are doing a great job answering as many questions as they can in the background. But a question that just came in was, how did you make friends, right? Like you were in classes, you were living in a first year residence hall. I know, Carrie, you really connected with your roommate. So maybe talk through kind of that being a first year and finding your friends, the people who are close to you now.
Yeah, sure. A lot of my friends obviously came from my dorm where I lived and some of my classes, but another way to make friends is just to participate in campus. Of course, a lot of my friends came from basketball. Okay, so intramural basketball is a big deal at Oxy. So if you make an intramural team, or if you just come to the basketball courts to play some pickup, you'll be sure to make friends pretty fast. And that holds true in anything you participate in, whether it's signing up for clubs or signing up for some sort of organization, or just sitting on the quad and seeing the same people pass over and over until you finally just like reach out.
Absolutely. What about you, Haley?
So similar to Kara, my very first friend was in my dorm. So I moved in a little bit early to participate in an LA Engage program. And someone down the hall who actually ended up being roommates with one of my teammates. Her dad came down the hall just to pop his head in and see how we were setting up our room. And that's how I met her. And so totally random, never probably would have met her otherwise, except through my teammate. But now she's my very first friend. We still stay in touch. And otherwise, I met some friends just hanging out in the common room. We had a whole Bachelorette Monday bracket going. And so people would just come in and just sit down with us and watch the show every Monday. So just, you kind of meet people, through classes, through different organizations. Obviously, I had my instant friends through my softball team. But, being willing to be engaged and participate, I think, like Kara said, is the best way to do that.
Now, kind of on the other side of the important relationships, so not just your friends, but we really get very close to our faculty at Oxy. Could you each share who is your favorite professor, and how did you connect with them? What did they do that made you like really love their class or love working with them? Haley, why don't you start?
So my favorite professor is how I ended up with my minor. So I really enjoyed taking classes with Professor Day. He's the head of the East Asian Studies department here at Oxy. So I took his class originally as part of my history major and continued to take classes with him. So by the time I knew it, I had taken 3 classes with him, and I was like, well, I'm so close to a minor, might as well finish it out. And so he's now my academic advisor. He's leading a trip to China next year, so I'm hoping to be on that trip as part of a class. So I just really enjoyed taking his classes, and he and I have really good conversation about my research. And so that's definitely part of it.
What about you, Kier?
Yeah, my favorite professor actually came from my first year seminar. I took a class called Asian Student Movements with Professor Nam, and he was like kind of a tough love teacher. So he would not be willing to like cut you some slack on whatever you're doing, but he was always willing to talk and engage. We had a lot of Socratic seminars. When he saw that I was interested in Frantz Fanon, we went down to the Oxy bookstore, had some lunch, and also he bought me a book of his work. So that was very, very nice for me. And he gave me his number in case I needed anything. And we still talk even now. He writes all my letters of recs for me. So that's nice.
Well, and what a difference to have someone write a letter for you when they actually know who you are and can really speak to your experience. A couple questions have come in about kind of a favorite Oxy memory, or maybe one Oxy story that you think exemplifies your experience. Now you haven't graduated yet. So like the word memory maybe feels a little big because like you're still here and you're coming back to campus this year, but can you think of an example maybe of an Oxy story that you'd like to share with everyone? Maybe Carrie, you could start.
Yeah, I could go. One of my favorite Oxy memories was it was finals week, and we'd all just finished up our finals, and it was also my friend's birthday. So at Oxy, generally on your birthday, you get dumped into the fountain. So we went down around midnight, dumped into the fountain, ran straight to the library and started playing some hide and go seek. So I don't know if that's necessarily allowed, but it was definitely something we did that night, and definitely a great night for me personally.
Oh, I love that. I think that shares some very good school spirit and kind of Oxy traditions. Haley, what about you?
I would say something for me is just the consistency I have. So every Tuesday, Thursday, we have pasta bar, and it's personally the softball team's favorite meal. So we have dubbed it Team dinner night. And so after practice, we'll all just, all covered in our ice packs, head down to the MP, grab some pasta, and just kind of do a daily check-in with each other and see how our week's going. Is there anything fun going on this weekend? And just, I really enjoy spending that, quality time with, my group. And so I think that's probably one of the things that even after I graduate, I'm really going to miss.
Oh, you're not wrong. Not only the school spirit, but again, the food is just so good. You've already talked about pasta bar. Care, what's your favorite food to eat at Oxy?
Yeah, weekends at the MP, they serve omelets until 2 p.m. So I like to wake up a little bit later on Saturdays and Sundays and go in and get some omelets and some tater tots. So those bang.
Absolutely. So again, I know lots of questions are coming in. We're not going to have time to get to everything. Our admission officers are doing a great job of helping out and answering as many questions as they can. There are lots of ways to stay in touch with us. So you don't need to only try to ask your questions now. We will share in the chat box some links so that you can reach out to myself or our fellow admission officers and even to our students, because we're happy to answer your questions. But maybe one more question we can answer live. Could you each just share why you chose Oxy? This was a few years ago. You're both going to be seniors now, but how did you decide that this was the right school for you? Haley, can you start?
Sure. So fun fact, I am actually a legacy student. My mom did attend Oxy, but she never pushed on me. It was never something I had to do. We were actually driving home from a softball tournament in Irvine, and the only reason we stopped at Oxy was because she knew where the bathrooms were. And so, as cheesy as it sounds, as soon as I walked on campus, I just had this gut feeling I was exactly where I was supposed to be. And so I started doing more research into college, and I realized it was exactly everything I wanted. It was a small school in California, so I was far enough away from my parents in Sacramento where I had some independence but could go home for holidays. And so I ended up reaching out to one of our softball coaches, and they came out and saw me. And so I was able to come do an overnight visit here at Oxy as well, where I got to meet the team as well as just the general Oxy population. And what really stuck out to me when I was on my visit was that everyone here just generally seemed to like each other. I couldn't sense any major big tensions. I came from a pretty standard public cliquey high school. And so here at Oxy, being able to, have the opportunity to flow in between different groups really, resonated with me. And so I applied to early decision 1 and haven't regretted my decision since.
Fabulous. And Care, I think your experience was a little different than that. So you want to tell everyone how you decided to come to Oxy?
Yeah, I'm from about an hour away. So something about that LA weather means that I'm not built for the cold. So I knew I wanted to stay in California, and Occidental was similarly to Haley, far enough from my parents that I didn't have to go back every weekend, but close enough that I could if I wanted to. So that was nice for me. And then when I came on my tour, it was kind of a full circle moment, I guess. So that tour kind of inspired me to apply to Oxy, which I hadn't planned on doing until I came to campus and saw how beautiful the campus was and how nice the weather was as usual. So that was why I applied to Oxy.
Well, we are very lucky that you both chose Oxy. I cannot thank you enough for joining us today, just making yourself available and answering these questions. And again, I just really appreciate everyone tuning in. You all joined us from a lot of different places. I hope this was helpful. I hope that you can get a sense of what it feels like to be an Oxy student. And I just encourage you to stay in touch with us. So thank you all so much. And I hope everybody has a great night.